Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range with a couple of Smith & Wesson Victory Revolvers from World War II. I have two of them. I have one that was manufactured by Smith & Wesson for the Lindley program, which is chambered in 38-200, which is 38 Smith & Wesson. I also have another one here with a shorter barrel. This has a 4-inch barrel where the Lindley gun has a 5-inch barrel, and this one's chambered in 38 Special. We're going to talk about these two handguns, why they're known as the Victory Revolvers, and have a little bit of fun with them this afternoon, and kind of talk about why revolvers were still being used in World War II when most of the world's militaries were adopting or had adopted semi-automatic handguns like the 1911, the Luger, the P38, the Nambu. So let's talk about that and have some fun this afternoon. Let's get started. The two calibers are quite different. In my hand, I have a 38 Smith & Wesson, which is much shorter than the 38 Special that my thumb is currently touching. At the beginning of the war, both the US and the Brits were using a lead bullet. They both, well, I don't know how much trouble we got into for it. We very quickly moved to a 158 grain jacketed bullet for our 38 Specials, but the 38-200 was a 38 diameter bullet with a 200 grain bullet, hence 38-200. But it was a lead bullet. And the Brits were taken to task for using a lead bullet because it was considered to be an expanding bullet, which is a no-no based upon treaties. So they later in the war started using a lighter bullet, right around 178 grains or 180 grains, that was also jacketed. But they didn't change the calibers. So the Brits continued to use this really short 38 Smith & Wesson cartridge while the American forces continued to use the larger 38 Special. In America, the Victory Revolvers were relegated to naval use primarily. Naval pilots and Marine Corps pilots would have been issued the revolver, and then some of the Home Guard troops in the rear would have been issued the revolver. Primarily, America's fighting handgun was the 1911, which is chambered in 45 ACP, which most troops preferred. Keep in mind, Americans had some bad experiences with 38 caliber guns in earlier wars, and troops weren't very keen on the caliber in general. So most of them would opt for the 45 ACP. But there's a very distinct difference between these two calibers and the two revolvers that chamber them. I'll keep this short, guys. YouTube is making it harder and harder for gun channels to exist on their platform, and that's in a number of different ways. First of all, they censor our content pretty heavily, and they demonetize our videos. A great way to support us at the Military Arms channel is to swing by and become a patron supporter. Over on Patreon, you get all sorts of behind-the-scenes information, giveaways, deals on all sorts of stuff from Copper Custom. Just swing by, check out patreon.com/military arms. Another great way to support us is to go buy our Forged from Freedom t-shirt store. There's a link down in the description below. If you'd like to have this full semi-automatic t-shirt, it can be yours. Just follow the link down below. Thanks for supporting us, guys. This is my Lindley 38-200 chambered Victory Revolver. Now, Smith & Wesson based these on their original 1899 model, which also became known as the M&P. Later, in the late 50s, like right around 1957, it became known as the Model 10, but it would be incorrect to call this a Model 10 because they didn't use model numbers like that until the late 50s. So this is based on the original 38 Special hand ejector model of 1899, which was then also renamed as the M&P, or Military and Police, which is a name that Smith & Wesson still uses today with their semi-automatic pistols. Just an interesting piece of history there. Now, of course, these are 6-shot revolvers. The only real difference between the US revolver and the Lindley gun is the barrel length, and of course the chambering of the two guns. One's shooting a larger 38 Special, this is shooting the shorter 38-200. You can safely carry 6 rounds in these revolvers. If you look through the space, you'll see light. You'll notice the firing pin is not protruding and touching the primer of the gun, or the primer of the cartridge that's sitting underneath it. It won't make contact until the trigger is fully pulled, and now you'll see that you can actually see the firing pin coming into contact with the primer. When I release the trigger, the hammer comes back. So yes, these pistols were safe to be carried with a live round under the hammer for the most part. They feature very rudimentary sights. You have a half moon front sight blade, and you just have a notch cut into the receiver of the gun, so it's not adjustable. At best, you could file down the front sight if you wanted to raise the elevation, or you could turn the barrel in the frame if you wanted to. That's kind of hard to do because Smith & Wesson actually pinned the barrels in the early days. So you're not going to twist that barrel readily without driving that pin out and having to re-drill it and put the pin back in. Quite a bit of work. So they're sighted at the factory, and hopefully they be somewhat close. Now this little guy, again, is a Lindley gun with a 5-inch barrel shooting the 38-200, which is this stumpy little cartridge. And we are shooting lead bullets, which, as I think I had mentioned, would be correct for earlier in the war. Later they went to a jacketed bullet. These rounds do not replicate the original military rounds, so there's no point in us really chronographing the two because we don't have the proper loads, the World War II military loads, for either of the guns out here this afternoon. So it holds 6 rounds just like that, and it's just like any other Smith & Wesson revolver that you would use. It has these nice walnut grips that are fitting, you know, they have this unique contour to them. And why they call them Victory Revolvers is because right here on the bottom underneath the lanyard, you'll see a V stamped into it right there by my finger. That little V stood for victory. And then on the other side, you'll have the serial number of the gun. So the V is where we get the Victory model of revolver. That's how it got its name. All right, we have a challenge target that's downrange, probably right around 20 yards, maybe 25 yards. I think this little guy shoots a little bit left, so I'm going to hold on the right edge of the plate, and you're going to see that this thing has very little recoil. Oh, I dropped one. So I'm not the world's best revolver shooter. Now, again, it was based on the ejector model of 1899. Push the ejector, throws out the spent cases, and you load in 6 more cartridges. Now let's take a look at the US version of the Victory Revolver. That's what I'm wearing in this period correct. I guess you kind of call it a shoulder strap. This is made by World War Supply. I pick these things up when I find them available over there on their website. They're actually really cool reproductions. They're so authentic that the only way you can tell that they're fakes is that they're so stinking new. Even the stampings and stuff on them are accurate reproductions. They're really, really good reproductions, and the prices on them are really affordable, typically in the $40 range or even less sometimes. And no, they don't give me these holsters. I actually buy them. I don't even think they watch my videos or even know that I exist. But I love their gear, so I buy reproduction holsters for P38s and Lugers and revolvers, anything I can find that they have in stock, again, because the prices are so, what seem to be ridiculously low for extremely high quality soft goods. But so I'm wearing this in a US holster. This would have been attached around the belt, and then you just have it clipped on back here on the back side so that you would be able to carry a handgun. Let's say if you're a Naval or Marine Corps pilot, this is how you would carry your handgun. So anyway, when I take out my little 38 Special, you'll notice something right off the bat. Yes, this one's in a little bit rougher shape than my Lindley gun, but you'll also notice that you know, the parkerization obviously is a little bit more thin. There's a little bit more patina to it, and the barrel is an inch shorter. But it's also chambered in the 38 Special, which is a much more powerful cartridge than the 38-200 that the Brits used. So again, we still have the same half-moon sight on the front. We still have the rear sight milled into the receiver of the gun. Everything about the two guns is the same with the exception of the barrel length, the markings, and the chambering, the 38 Special. Both will have Made in USA on it and bear the Smith & Wesson logo. They're double action, single action pistols, which means you can fire that first shot double action, but I like shooting single action. Now you're going to know right away, yes, this is a modern load. I don't know how closely it replicates the original military loading, but the 38 Special is a much more potent cartridge, at least in my opinion, and it makes sense. Look how much longer it is. Quite a bit more powder. So you're going to notice this thing kicks just a little bit more. All right, same thing with this gun. You just push the release, flip the cylinder open, hit the ejector, and again, based on the 1899 model, hand eject model that Smith & Wesson produced. So overall, just a really, really cool piece of history, and it's fun having them both out here this afternoon. But the Brits, for whatever reason, really like that 38-200. They used it in their Webleys, and they used it in their Enfield revolvers. Let's take a look at a couple of those revolvers really quick, then we'll get back over to our Victory model pistols. I believe you guys have seen this revolver here on the channel before. This is my war production Webley, which is also chambered in the 38-200. The Webley revolvers are no strangers to World War II or even World War I collectors. They have a lever here on the side that you push. It's a break action pistol, and as you open it, its ejector works. This one is also chambered in that really stumpy little 38-200. And these pistols were in common use by the Brits. But again, these revolvers were pressed into service because there was such a shortage of arms supply the world over. Everybody, the Germans, every time they occupied a country, they took over the production of their small arms manufacturing. They pushed so many different guns into production and pushed them out to their military and police. It's a staggering number of firearms. But for Allied forces, we continued to use guns that we already had the capability of producing, and we just cranked them out. So when we needed more handguns and we couldn't crank out the 1911s fast enough, we started turning out revolvers. So here's the little Webley. This is a neat little gun. Now this one's a double action, single action. I'm gonna shoot it single action. And again, it's shooting that real putty little cartridge. I don't think this thing's on. Nope. There we go. Just gotta aim a little bit high. All right, yep. So the sights are just a little bit off. I had to aim a little bit high. And see how it kicks them out? That's a really cool feature of the Webley. Another revolver commonly found in use by UK forces would have been this Enfield No. 2 pistol. It also chambers the 38 Smith & Wesson or the 38-200. Now you'll notice that this gun features a bobbed hammer, a different contoured grip, and it looks an awful lot like the Webley. As a matter of fact, Enfield and Webley got into a bit of a squabble over the fact that their guns were so similar. One company was knocking another company off. However, they had to quickly settle that dispute because they had a war to fight. So this handgun was also in use. It's a double action only pistol. It's very similar to the Webley that it mimics, and it also chambers the 38-200 cartridge. So it breaks open. The only real difference besides the manufacturer and the designs is the fact that this one is a double action only pistol and has a bit more of what I would call a target grip. Now I really suck at double action only shooting, and I haven't shot this gun in forever. I can't remember the last time I did shoot the gun. So here you go. We have 6 rounds loaded and double action only at 25 yards. I will say the grip definitely feels better on this Enfield. All right, and again, when you break it open, it should just throw out all the shells. So the double action only is not all that bad, actually. It's shot right to point of aim. So yeah, what a cool little pistol. All right, the Americans also used other revolvers outside of the Victory model. Again, we had a shortage of firearms, so they brought out some stuff that was used during World War I, cleaned it up, and started issuing it again in World War II. Let's take a look at that pistol really quick. And miss. All right, so these sights on this gun are just a little bit left too. That first round went over his left shoulder, so I aimed over at the right shoulder. You'll notice I'm bleeding, and that's because this gun has quite a bit more recoil than the 38, and I don't get a really good grip on it because a lot of my fingers, when I'm gripping it, there's dead space here, and the gun recoils back, hits me in this knuckle, and then the way I'm holding the gun with the thumb like this, the latch that releases the cylinder took off a big hunk of skin. Now when you want to empty the gun, the hand ejector doesn't work, so you have to pluck out the spent cases by their rims. Not the fastest way to reload the pistol, but again, it was not intended for frontline forces. This would have been used for rear echelon forces, guard units and things like that, or stateside, National Guard units, people that were in the rear with the gear, not the guys out in the front. They would have been using the 1911. In my hand, I have both the Victory Revolvers. This is the UK Lindley gun on top with its 5-inch barrel, and the 38-200 chambering, and this is the U.S. Forces gun 38 Special 5-inch barrel. Now, you're probably wondering, you know the 38 Special is not going to fit into the chamber of the Lindley's gun, obviously, because the 38 Special is longer. It's not going to be able to fit in there. The question is does the 38-200 work in the U.S. gun? That's an interesting question. So let's find out. Do a little bit of a redneck science here. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. You'll notice I'm still bleeding from having ripped my thumb open using the 1917 Colt. Make sure you don't get blood on guns, guys, and not get it off there very quickly, because blood is like acid to steel, and it'll pit the finish really very quickly. So now here we have a 38-200, 38 Special gun, and there is no way I'm going to get that in there. I would have to force it, beat it in there with the hammer, which is not advisable. So the 38-200 does not fit into the 38 Special cylinder, but the 38 Special plops in there just fine. So I knew you guys were probably going to ask that question, so I wanted to show you that 38 Smith & Wesson, for whatever reason, is just slightly larger and won't fit the 38 Special chamber. I hope you guys enjoyed coming out to the range with us this afternoon and doing some shooting with these beautiful pieces of history, which are the Smith & Wesson Victory model revolvers. We have both of them out here, the Lindley's guns and 38-200, and of course the American version of it with the shorter barrel and the 38 Special. Again, these are very cool collectible pieces from World War II. If you want to pick up your own, you're going to have to go to an auction site or some online source and try to find one. You can find them at estate sales and places like that, and prices are going to vary based upon where you find them and what condition they're in. But if you're a revolver guy, or if you're just a World War II history buff, it's definitely worth picking one of these up. Guys, we definitely want to thank you for following us and watching us for the last 10 years. 2018 marks the 10th year we've been doing the Military Arms channel here on YouTube. So we definitely look forward to 10 more years. We don't know what the future holds. That's why a lot of us have gone over to full30.com, and that's kind of where you're going to find a lot of the other gun channels. And they are opening up their doors so more gun channels can come on board. So please do swing by and check out full30.com. Also, if you'd like to check us out over at coppercustom.com, it's another way to support us here at the Military Arms channel. You can find us there at coppercustom.com. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for all those years of support. We'll talk to you guys soon. Let's see if these sights are on double action. Tell you what, that 38 Smith & Wesson cartridge is a pud load. I wouldn't want to carry it. I think 9mm is more powerful. Talk to you guys later.